Hi, so I am, welcome to the Saboteur Show, and I'm Andrea. I was a dominatrix for 12 years and now I'm a confidence coach, and I love talking about self-sabotage because it's the number one thing that I see in people that just tends to come in and undo all my handiwork. So getting our eyes on this means that we can start to really deal with it and fix things. And over to you, Yannick.
Hi there, everyone. My name is Yannick. I'm known as the Naked Coach on social media. I'm a passionate mindset coach who loves helping others overcome self-sabotage.
Yay, cool. And Yannick, what is it we're going to be covering today?
Okay, so I thought that today what we would do is that we would start looking and unpacking your sage and the 5 powers that you can tap into when you basically tap into your inner wise sage, which is basically like for many of us lies dormant just completely unused. And yeah, so I thought that today would be a great day to just start and unpacking one of the 5 powers. And the power today that we're going to focus on is the empathize power of your sage.
Nice, good. And I just want to jump in and just let people know that this is a 15-week series. And we now have a Facebook group where you can come and join us and you can watch replays of this video and interact with the community. And we will also be supporting this series with a Friday night Q&A session on Clubhouse. So we would love to have you there. If any of this stuff resonates with you, then come and ask us questions and we'll be happy to help. And the show on Clubhouse is at 7 p.m. UK time, which is 2 p.m. Eastern, and you might need to help me out here, 11 a.m. Pacific.
That's correct.
Yes, excellent. I got it finally. So we would love to see you there. So I just wanted to let people know that.
Absolutely. Yeah, and by all means, like listen to these videos, come and find us and join the Facebook group, ask questions. There's also a link to complete the assessment. It's a free assessment that takes 5 or 6 minutes to complete, and then get your results back. And just in the conversation, bring those with you and see what resonates. Sometimes what I found was that it actually puts a name to something that you had a feeling was there. And so sometimes it just it sort of like makes things a little bit more clearer for people after they've done the assessment. And so yeah, so let's speak on the topic because this is the first time that we're speaking about the sage, and so I'm excited to speak about tapping into the empathize power and what that's all about. So out of the 5 powers that the sage provides, the empathize power tends to be the one that is the weakest of them all. The reason is because it requires us to have empathy, not only for others, but for ourselves. And so I take a moment and consider what I'm about to tell you. How often have you felt empathy for a friend or maybe a family member or a colleague that's going through a tough situation or they're in a bind right now? So how often has had that happen to you where you've actually been able to feel empathy for somebody else? Now, take a moment and consider the reverse. And what I mean by that is, how often have you felt empathy towards yourself after going through something similar? And I mean, like, I'll speak for myself, but I think that I'll end up speaking for many of us, which is, yeah, you know what? Like, I have empathy for my friends and for people that I know or colleagues, family members who are going through like a tough bind. But when it comes to me, it's almost like it's something that like is completely like just disappears. It's like all of a sudden it's almost like I have like a blank. I draw a blank and I'm like, oh, like I don't know what to do. It's like, okay, so I'll just be harsh on myself for messing something up.
Yeah.
So resonates with you as well, Andrea.
Yeah, like, so for me, empathy has always really meant not so much sympathy or anything like that, but for me, it's always meant understanding what someone's been through to get to that stage, right? If someone's acting in a certain way, rather than get angry or get pissed off, then I try and understand what took them to that point, you know. And that came from when I used to I used to go into prisons, and I would talk to guys about addiction. And a lot of these people had been written off by their families, by society, but it really trained that empathy muscle of, well, what got you to that place? Because you don't just do that out of the blue, right? But often it's, and just when you're saying that, it's different. I very rarely do that for myself. I very rarely go, all right, well, maybe you had some circumstances that led to that point. Usually I just spend that time beating myself up. Like, how could you have done this again? How could you have acted that way? How could you have insert whatever it is? So yeah, it totally resonates with me.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. Is that like we're very, very quick to offer that up to a friend, a family member, colleague, somebody that we know. But when the time comes that we need that empathy, it's almost like that self-empathy muscle or wiring just isn't there. It's almost like it's not in place. It's like it's not even an option, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what typically happens is this is kind of stemming from the judge, and this judge is the first video that we created in this series. So if you're watching this now and you haven't watched the judge, I implore you to just hit pause on this video and then just go watch the judge.
Yeah.
So the lie that the judge feeds us is that being hard on ourselves is for our greater good, when in fact it's a load of bullshit. It's true. What is good for us in this situation is what we offer to others, which is basically unconditional self-love. And that's how you start to turn the tide. Mm-hmm. So by activating the sage power of empathy, you gain access to compassion, forgiveness, and gratitude. So the essence of the sage is love. And if you compare that to the saboteurs, it's all fear-based.
Yeah.
So when we look at the empathize power, it's about the love of yourself and others. Mm-hmm. And we'll get through to the other sage powers in the weeks ahead. But for the explorer, which is another power that we'll cover later on, it's about love of discovery. For the innovate power of the sage, it's about love of invention. Okay. For the navigate power, it's about the love of meaning. And the activate power, which we'll get to at the end, is the love of making things happen, being in action. And so, yeah, so we'll get to these as the weeks progress, but I just thought that I'd just do like a small intro just to position them all in our call today. So the sage perspective is about saying, I am one with and in love with the universe. So I'm one with the universe. The universe is my partner. Whereas the saboteurs will try to make you believe that you're alone in the world and that you'll need to fend for yourself in order to survive. So, and I know that I, for so many years, have lived that way, where I felt alone, disconnected from others. I felt that I had to, like, it was me versus everybody else. That it was like sort of like a never-ending battle, and in order just to survive, right? Yeah. So, and yeah, it's just like it's just like load of bullshit, is what it is. So once you basically start focusing on how to activate and use all these powers of the sage, you'll notice how your saboteurs are really misdirecting you and feeding you all these stories that in the end aren't true. And they're keeping you where you are right now. So one of the ways that I have sort of like, I guess like use the empathize power is by grabbing or finding a photo of my younger self. Now, see if you can find a photo of you when you're between the ages of like 3 to maybe 8 years old. I mean, it's okay if it's a little bit older, but try not to go much older than that. And the reason is that I want you to look at yourself at that age. And this is like the age before like your judge and your saboteurs started creeping into your life. Okay. So yeah, so really find that photo and you know what, like look at yourself and look at your essence, who you were before the judge and the saboteurs sort of like moved in and sort of like unpacked without you potentially, like, I mean, like at that age, you didn't know what you didn't know, right?
Yeah.
So, and the other thing that I invite you to do is when you have your judge trigger you about somebody else, like where you find yourself, you're judging somebody else, try to imagine what they look like at that age.
I like
before the saboteurs and the judge creeped into their life.
Yeah.
And then just like, if you want to take it like one step further, like imagine like yourself at that age and the other person at that age and how you might have interacted differently.
Yeah, I like that. That's very clever. And yeah. You know, as you were talking there's a lot of stuff coming up for me there. So I was thinking about when I first get into recovery, and so I joined a 12-step recovery group, and it's very much about taking responsibility and accountability for yourself. And before then, I had no responsibility or accountability for myself. Like I just did whatever I wanted and screw everybody else. So I think that there was a fair bit of fear that was instilled that if I didn't take responsibility and accountability, then I might drink and I might die, right? And that was the kind of the language that they use, you'll drink and you'll die. And so I definitely feel like I swung the other way, where I was making myself so responsible and so accountable that I gave myself no room just to be human. And I really did beat myself up a lot for past mistakes and for just being my very nature of being alive, right? Just any mistake I was making, I had zero empathy for myself, but yet I could go into prisons and I could have empathy for murderers and wife beaters and alcoholics and drug addicts and all of that, and I had genuine empathy for them. But for myself, I held myself up to such a high standard of, appearance, behavior, all of that stuff, that it was so stressful. The least little thing, I was just like, you're the worst. You're going to drink, you're going to die. Like, it's wild.
Right. And consider for a moment, Andrea, that the issue there, most likely, just like many of us, is just that, like, that's like a muscle, right? The self-empathy part, like I mentioned earlier, is just like a muscle, and you don't work it if you don't work it out. It's almost like what, how some people basically like only garden in the summer, and then like they will be gardening for 2 hours, and then they'll get up, and then like all of a sudden like there's a muscle that they've never felt before. It is sort of like, oh my God, like my back. So consider that what they did for that 2 hours was that they actively were working on a muscle that had never been worked out before. And that's basically what they're feeling. So exactly. So it's like that muscle, had that muscle been worked out throughout the year, it wouldn't have been an issue. So, and then when they came,
it's like I went into the gym and started trying to lift 100 kilos from cold.
yeah, exactly.
I've tore my empathy hamstrings.
Yeah, that your self-empathy hamstrings are like, they're just like, they're shot. They're like, okay, you know what? Like, yeah, yeah, that's exactly it. Now I know that for some people, they might not necessarily have had like the greatest childhood, and memories and all that stuff might and for whatever reason, right? So you might feel saboteur thoughts when you're looking at that younger version of yourself. And the saboteur thoughts are wanting to creep in. And oftentimes it'll show up as sadness or self-pity. So just notice it, because oftentimes that's a sign of a saboteur interfering. And it could be your victim saboteur interfering. So just be mindful of that and see if you can put that aside for a moment and look closely. And I guarantee you, if you persevere, you'll start to notice your essence is present beneath like what you consider to be like a sadness or your sorrow. And what is super important is to not judge yourself and serve yourself a great dose of empathy. Like, you know what, a couple times a day and doing it for several weeks, and it'll be like going into the gym and then starting with that like 2.5 kilo weight, and then sort of like slowly building up to the 5 kilo, and then the 7 kilo, and then the 10 kilo. That's exactly what it'll do. So yeah, so that's the power of empathize from your wise sage.
Beautiful. And so I would like to just remind everybody that we do have a YouTube channel, and you're on it right now, so like and subscribe to this channel. You can find the Facebook group. The Facebook group is just called Uncover and Overcome Self-Sabotage. You'll see a big pink picture of Yannick and I side by side. And also just to remind you that we have a chat which will support this. You can come and ask questions, and it's every Friday night for the next 15 weeks on Clubhouse, and it's at 7 p.m. UK time, 2 p.m. Eastern, or 11 a.m. Pacific. And if you need an invite to get into Clubhouse, just let us know. We've got some invites between us and we can sort you out. We'll find a way, we'll get you on there. But thank you for watching and for all your lovely comments and everything. So thank you.
Awesome, thank you. And the one last thing that I'd say is that, you know what, if you know somebody who would benefit from watching this video, please share it on your social media, share the link through texting, and invite, if you're in the Facebook group, you know people who might benefit from it, please absolutely like invite them to the group, and let's continue the conversation.
Amazing, good, cool. Well, that's us, that's a wrap. Amazing.